Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm really glad you're here tonight. I know how rare it is to actually find a quiet moment in the middle of everything. So, tonight's story is designed to be a bit of an anchor for you. It's a chance to just slow down and listen. If you find yourself coming back to these videos, please do consider subscribing. It really helps a small channel like this grow. But for now, don't worry about any of that. Just settle in. The rain did not arrive in Lisbon with a crash tonight. It drifted in, a salt-heavy veil pulled across the Tagus River from the deep Atlantic. At first, it was just a change in the scent of the air, a sudden sharp chill that made the laundry hanging from the iron balconies of Alfama snap and dance in the wind. But now, the transition is complete. The rain is steady. A rhythmic, hypnotic drumming against the terracotta rooftops, turning the sun-baked clay into something dark, slick, and ancient. In these narrow alleys, these limestone veins of the city, the water gathers quickly. It rushes down the steep inclines of the hills, gurgling into iron grates that have been buried in these streets longer than anyone alive can remember. The walls here are thick. They are heavy with the accumulated weight of centuries. They have survived the shaking of the earth and the heat of 1,000 summers. But tonight, they only listen to the rain. Most of the city has retreated now. Behind the heavy wooden shutters of the tall, narrow houses, families are tucked away. The only signs of life are the faint, warm glows behind the cracks of the wood and the distant, muffled clatter of a dinner plate. The streets have been surrendered to the storm. The street lamps, those lonely, amber sentinels, cast long, wavering smears of light across the wet cobblestones. If you look closely, you can see the history in those stones. They aren't flat. They are rounded, polished by 500 years of footsteps until they shine like black glass under the downpour. Down a street so narrow 2 people can barely walk abreast, a single sliver of light escapes into the dark. It comes from a heavy oak door, its grains swollen and dark from the dampness. This is a sanctuary. It doesn't look like much from the outside, just a weathered sign and a window fogged with silver steam. But to anyone caught in this deluge, it is a cathedral of warmth. The visitor pulls the door open, and for a fleeting second, the sharp, cold breath of the Atlantic rushes inside, only to be pushed back by a thick wall of golden heat. She closes the door with a soft, decisive click, and the roar of the rain instantly becomes a distant, peaceful hum. She stands in the entryway for a long moment. Her coat is heavy, the wool dark and sodden, and as she unbuttons it, she feels the first true touch of the room's heat. It is a dry, honest warmth, the kind that smells of seasoned eucalyptus wood and old, leather-bound books. The visitor's boots make a dull, rhythmic thud against the wide pine floorboards as she moves toward the hearth. Each step feels heavy, grounded by the dampness of the night. As she nears the fire, the chill that had settled deep in her bones begins to dissolve. There, stretched out on a hand-woven rug of faded crimson, lies the true master of the cafe. Her name is Amalia. A grey cat, the colour of a Lisbon fog, she sits perfectly still beside the dancing flames. At the sound of the visitor's approach, she doesn't startle. She simply lifts her head with a royal indifference. Her green eyes, the colour of glass bottles found in the river, crack open just enough to catch the orange glow of the embers. For a long beat, the two of them share the silence. Amalia watches the room with a slow, blinking gaze before rising. She stretches, a long, fluid arch that pulls through her spine, extending one silver paw forward, then the other. After a slow circle, she collapses back into a tight coil, tucking her chin and curling her tail around her paws like a silk ribbon. Behind her, the fire pops, a sharp, woody report, sending a shower of dancing shadows across the whitewashed walls. In the corner, a deep wingback chair waits. Its leather is the color of dark mahogany, worn to a buttery smoothness by decades of quiet evenings. The visitor sinks into it, and the chair responds with a soft, familiar creak, the sound of an old friend settling in for a long talk. Behind the counter of dark, polished walnut, Manuel begins to move. He is a man who moves with the economy of a clockmaker. There is no clatter of porcelain, no hiss of steam that is too loud. He reaches for a ceramic mug, a heavy, hand-thrown vessel with a slight imperfection near the rim. The sound of the beans grinding is a low, satisfying growl that vibrates through the floorboards. Then comes the steam, a sharp, white hiss that cuts through the scent of the wood smoke. Manuel pours the milk in a slow, circular motion, the white foam folding into the dark espresso until it turns the color of a sunset over the Atlantic. He walks across the creaking pine, his shadow stretching long and thin toward the fireplace, and places the cup on the small table. A thin silver ribbon of steam curls upward, dancing in the amber light. The visitor wraps her cold fingers around the warm ceramic. She takes a slow, intentional sip. It tastes of dark earth, roasted beans, and a ghost of cinnamon. Beyond the fogged glass of the window, Lisbon is resting. The street lamps glow like low-hanging fruit along the narrow alleys, their reflections stretching across the wet stones. Somewhere in the distance, a low metallic hum begins to vibrate through the air. It is faint at first, a ghost of a sound, but it grows into a rhythmic clatter. It is the tram 28 grinding its way up the steep incline of the hill. You can hear the sharp clack-clack of the wheels over the junctions and the occasional blue spark of the overhead wires as they hiss in the damp air. The tram moves slowly, a glowing box of light passing through the dark, its bell giving a single muted chime that echoes off the stone walls before being swallowed by the rain. As the sound fades, the silence that returns is deeper than before. Manuel returns to the hearth. He picks up a fresh log of oak, the bark rough and dry, and places it carefully into the heart of the fire. For a moment, the flames surge, a bright, fierce orange that illuminates every corner of the room, every dusty book on the shelf, every line on Manuel's face. Then, the fire settles back into a steady, pulsing glow. The night is deepening now. The rain has slowed to a rhythmic dripping from the eaves, a soft tink-tink-tink against the tin gutters. On the balconies of Alfama, the potted geraniums are drinking their fill, their leaves heavy and dark. Inside the cafe, the fire is burning lower, turning from bright flame to a deep, smouldering crimson. The warmth remains, hovering in the air like a heavy blanket. Amalia's breathing has slowed to a near-silent rhythm, her flank rising and falling in perfect sync with the crackle of the wood. The visitor closes her eyes. She doesn't sleep, but she drifts. She listens to the heartbeat of the building, the settling of the wood, the sigh of the wind in the chimney. the distant, muffled shush of the city beneath its watery veil. The world outside feels a lifetime away. Here, in the amber heart of the cafe, there is only the warmth, the rain, and the quiet comfort of being exactly where you are supposed to be. The night carries on, gently, into the silence. The visitor leans her head back against the worn leather, closing her eyes. In the darkness behind her eyelids, the sound of the Lisbon rain transforms. It is no longer just water hitting stone, it is a bridge to a different time. She remembers a house much like this one, tucked away on the silver coast near Sintra. She remembers the way the Atlantic mist used to cling to the pine trees, turning the world into a blurred watercolor painting. Back then, the rain felt like a secret shared between the sky and the earth. She can almost smell it now, the sharp, resinous scent of crushed pine needles and the cold, metallic tang of the ocean spray. She shifts her weight, feeling the heavy drape of her damp wool coat against her knees. The heat from the hearth is no longer just on her skin. It has moved deeper, settling into her joints, softening the edges of her thoughts. She lifts the ceramic mug once more. It is still remarkably hot. She traces the rough, unglazed bottom of the cup with her thumb, a tactile reminder of the potter's wheel, of hands caked in clay, of something built to last. She takes a long, slow sip, letting the bitterness of the espresso and the sweetness of the steamed milk linger on her tongue. Across the room, Manuel is polishing a brass rail. The sound is a rhythmic, metallic shush, shush, shush that blends perfectly with the rain. He doesn't look at her, and she doesn't look at him. In this cafe, there is a silent contract between strangers, the right to be alone, together. Amalia, the cat, lets out a tiny, muffled chirp in her sleep. Her paws twitch. Perhaps she is dreaming of chasing the shadows that dance across the whitewashed walls. The visitor watches the cat's silver fur ripple with every breath. It is a slow, steady pulse. The pulse of the room. The pulse of a city that has finally stopped rushing. The world outside Alfama, the tourists, the noise, the frantic digital glow of the modern world feels like an ancient myth. Here, there is only the weight of the ceramic, the scent of the eucalyptus fire, and the endless, comforting song of the water against the glass. The night isn't just passing, it is deepening, folding itself around the cafe like a velvet cloak.